Have you ever wanted to create and launch an online course, only to find yourself worrying about what could happen to you or your business or your family if you don't get the legal stuff right? We've all felt those alarm bells, right? Or perhaps you've launched an online course only to think, damn, I've not given a moment's thought to the legal side of things. Or perhaps you've subconsciously put your head in the sand when it comes to getting the legal stuff right, due to a feeling that it's too hard, too expensive, or both. If any of this sounds familiar, I'd like you to imagine something. Imagine that when you take your leap of faith into the online course industry, you can do one of two things. You can leap without it costing the earth in legal fees, but not looking or knowing if you will land on a legal landmine. Or you can leap, eyes forward, and knowing where you will land because you have ticked legal boxes that protect your business and help it thrive. How would you prefer to leap? Leaping without hefty legal fees, or leaping with the confidence you'll land safely because you've addressed the legal stuff? Now, that might not sound like an easy choice, because you won't want hefty legal fees. No one does. But you'll also want to land safely, and of course everyone wants to land safely. What if I said you don't have to face that choice? I don't want you to face that choice. What if I said you don't have to, because you can have both? You can leap and land safely, having ticked legal boxes, and without it costing the earth. You can do both. I'm going to show you how you can have both. But first let me explain who I am, what we are dealing with here, and why it's important to work through the legal stuff when creating and launching your online course. I'm Richard Best. For a day job, I'm a lawyer. I've been working on the legal stuff for 25 years. That sees me getting deeply involved in matters relating to technology, contracting, intellectual property, privacy, and social media, to name a few. I'm a lawyer that gets into the trenches too. I've created my own blogs, ebook and audiobook, my own and others' websites, my own online contract generation tools, an online privacy toolkit, and my own course. I've delivered seminars on social media and the law, and I've blogged regularly on legal issues associated with the use of WordPress, called WP and Legal Stuff. Now, the first thing I want to acknowledge is that I get it. I understand that the legal stuff can be a bit esoteric, a bit out there, perhaps not on our radars. I get that. For some people, having to understand the legal stuff is a bit like having to understand the accounting stuff. But it's important to understand that not attending to the legal side of things is a bit like going to sea without a life jacket, or jumping out of a plane without having a reserve parachute, or staring at the sun without sunglasses, or thinking that if you shield your eyes from a grizzly bear in front of you, it's not there. None of these things is wise. Yes, you can go to sea without a life jacket. You can jump out of a plane without an emergency chute. You can stare at the sun without sunglasses. And you can imagine the grizzly bear isn't there by covering your eyes. But it's very unwise to do any of these things, because if something goes wrong, if the boat sinks, or if the primary chute fails, or if you stare at the sun too long, or if the grizzly is on the warpath, the consequences could be crippling. Now, here's the thing. When you launch an online course on the internet, you are launching it internationally and to a potentially large and diverse audience, most of whom you won't know. Launching a course in these circumstances without understanding what legally you can and cannot do, and without taking steps to protect yourself, is just as unwise as the things I mentioned a moment ago. If something goes wrong, the consequences for you and your reputation and your assets and the welfare of those who depend on you could all be bad. And I'm not trying to sound alarmist. It's just true. The consequences could be bad. Now, why is that? We might fail to take steps to protect the course content that we've poured our heart and soul into. That'd be a bit like opening your own bank vault without telling people they are not allowed to take what's inside. They might not know better and just help themselves. We might make mistakes by copying or cobbling together pieces of other people's content, thinking we can, when actually we can't. For example, we might think we can use other people's written content, or their images or music or videos that we find on the internet, only to find out later we were mistaken and that the copyright owner is unimpressed. That'd be a bit like getting into a boxing ring without training. You're likely to get whacked around, and you'll only have yourself to thank. What's more, ignorance doesn't get you off the hook. We might use Creative Commons licensed content, but not comply with the license requirements, which leaves us exposed as the license falls away and the copyright owner would have grounds for complaint. That can make us feel like a child who has disappointed a parent. You might obtain email addresses and market your course in a manner that breaches anti-spam laws. That can be like asking to be yelled at. You might fail to comply with privacy law transparency requirements, or do something with your customers' personal information, thinking you can, only to find you are breaching privacy laws. That's about as respectful and customer-centric as asking people in a fashion store to try on clothes in the middle of the shop. You may leave yourself open to claims against you in negligence, based on people relying on your course content and alleging that you've caused them some kind of loss. You might discover when it's too late that you've left yourself open to such claims because you've not taken steps to protect yourself. And bear in mind here that people can make claims against you even if you haven't been negligent. If you've not protected yourself, they can still have a crack at you. Now, they might not win, but they can put you through the trials and tribulations and costs of having to defend a claim. None of us wants that. Now, I've worried about these things before myself. The trick to protecting yourself, though, is not to blindly assume you'll never make a mistake, or that if you do, people will understand and cut you some slack. No, the trick to protecting yourself is to understand what you can and cannot do, to do your best based on that knowledge, to protect your content to the extent you can, and importantly, to protect yourself from the consequences of doing something wrong or that others think is wrong to the extent that you can. I've poured decades of experience into a course that enables you to do this, to understand what you can and can't do, to help you do your best, and to help you guard against a range of risks. Now, I get it that you could go and spend big dollars in obtaining advice just for yourself from a lawyer or attorney who may or may not have practical experience in the trenches. Absolutely, you can do that. Or you can reduce your risk to a reasonably low level now by taking the kinds of actions I explain to you in a step-by-step and logical manner. And trust me, it's much better to do this sort of thing sooner rather than later. If you need to see a lawyer down the line when things have gone wrong, and when they've gone wrong because you didn't take any steps to protect yourself at the outset, it could cost you a large amount of money indeed. And this isn't scaremongering. It really isn't. It's just fact. Lawyers are expensive, and the costs of fixing a mess can be much higher than the cost of preventing the mess from arising in the first place. Now, I get it that you may be wondering whether a lawyer from one country can help you if you are based in another country. Well, on that point, let me tell you a few things. I've lived and worked as a lawyer in New Zealand, the United Kingdom, and Germany, and I've been exposed to relevant legal issues arising under Australian, US, and Canadian law, as well as the laws of various European Union member states. When we look across most major Western legal systems, we actually see many similarities, many commonalities. Now, I'm certainly not saying that the laws are all the same the world over. They are not. And in some areas of law, there are higher standards in some places, like EU member states, than in others. But if we act in a way that reflects the similarities, the commonalities, and we take into account the higher standards that some countries have compared to others, then we are going a long way indeed to understanding how to behave in a manner that will substantially reduce our risk. And I would add that in preparing my course, I've researched applicable laws in the United States, the United Kingdom, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand. Now, when it comes to all these laws, there's a lot to think about, and it's not something you can really expect a person who's new to the online course industry or who hasn't thought about legal issues before to be able to get to grips with by themselves in any reasonable time frame. And this is definitely an area where do-it-yourselfers will struggle and most likely get things wrong. They'll most likely get things wrong not because they are not smart. They could well be very smart. The problem is that there's just too much to read, understand, synthesize, and apply. And the complexity multiplies when we realize that we are selling our courses both within and beyond our national borders, and that sometimes we are affected by the laws of the countries in which our customers live, even if different to where we live. With all this in mind, I've poured all my learnings into an online course that helps course creators who care about their business to avoid making costly legal mistakes and protect themselves and their content without it costing the earth. There's so much more I have to say, but I really need to wrap this up. So, to do that, let me say this. Once you've signed up to my course by clicking the link below and you have completed the course, you'll be able to take your leap of faith into the online course industry. And importantly, you'll do it with confidence instead of anxiety or nervousness or the ringing of alarm bells. You'll do it with confidence, knowing that you've considered the kinds of things that can trip people up and knowing how to take steps to minimize the risk of your falling over. Now, I'm not forming a lawyer-client relationship with people who take the course, but what I will do is educate you on practical steps across a range of dimensions that you can take to reduce your risk and better protect yourself. That I will do, and I'll do it having considered laws in the United States, Canada, the United Kingdom, Australia, and New Zealand. I will help you protect yourself as I've protected myself and others. If you don't think what I have to say is of practical use to you, or if it hasn't helped you in any way, you can get your money back. You can do that because there's a 30-day money-back guarantee. And as a bonus, you'll get access to automation tools that will help you produce drafts of some of the legal documentation you'll need. To get that bonus, click the link below. The question for you now is this. Do you want to craft and launch your course without considering and addressing the kinds of legal risks that could trip you up? Or do you want to click the link below and move swiftly towards your launch while also considering, addressing, and avoiding those risks? What I'm offering you here is a comparatively quick and easy way to get on with what you want to do, with considerably more confidence that your launch and course delivery won't be compromised by legal landmines. So, if you want to launch and deliver your course with confidence, click the link below, and I really look forward to seeing you in Module 1 of the course.